Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is the final video in the character illustration / character design series, in which I show you how to go from a character design concept from a document into a nice fully illustrated piece to show off your character in a cool way. So, final episode. This is the one where everything comes together, where we learn how to color. Now, this isn't going to be a video on color theory. I will get into some color theory basics in this video, but I won't go fully into it, like color psychology and things like that. I'm mostly going to show you the basics, like complementary, tertiary, things like that, analogous color schemes. Here we are in the Photoshop, back where we left off, where we completed the line art from this video. Go check out the sketch and the line art videos, aka part 2 and part 3, in the description. I went ahead and I filled in the character already, so you didn't have to see me do all that. I filled it in with a nice flat gray color, so we can go ahead and start filling in our colors. But let's get into the basics of color theory, so that way your entire picture doesn't turn into fucking Nyan Cat. So first I want to ask you a question. What is color? To most of you, you all know color as this, right? The color wheel, as you will. You have the reds, the magentas, the greens, and things like that. Yeah, this is all the colors, and you can adjust these to make other colors. Well, guess what? You're fucking wrong, because that's not what color is. This, what you're looking at, is hue. Hue, aka the wavelength of light. I'm gonna put up a diagram right here. Color is what happens when a wavelength of light is scattered upon reaching a surface, and what is reflected back to the person's eye is what that thing is colored. For example, chlorophyll, a natural pigment within most plants. Sun beams down white light, because if you ever saw that prism, you know what I mean. It beams down light, and those chlorophyll particles, they absorb the light, they absorb it all, do juicy, delicious for photosynthesis, but it reflects back that green light, because it don't like it. Hi everyone, it's Tenshi from the future. I just wanted to interject here and give you guys a little bit extra information that I forgot to give you while I was making the video. So, black and white. Some call these colors, some don't. I'm here to tell you that they are not colors. These two things are a result of the absence of color and all colors mixed together. Usually, whenever something is black, the light will all be absorbed. It is the absorption of all light and all color, and therefore it is the lack of color. It is the absence, a void. So you can't really call black a color, because color is light. Black is the absence of light. So black is not a color. Same with white. White can be called a color, but it's more of like everything is being bounced off. So it's not absorbing anything. It is what happens when it hits an object and it is scattered into the atmosphere, creating all white light. I'll even have the diagram with the Newton prism thing. I just wanted to give you that extra piece of information because I was an idiot and I didn't put it in. Also, fun fact, the reason why the sky is blue is because shorter wavelengths hit our eyes, because the sun is closest to us rather than how it is when it's farther away on the horizon. That's why we have the reds and the yellows hitting our eyes rather than the blues during sunset, because the sun is technically farther away from you when it's on the horizon. So that's another cool thing. So there we go. Continue past Tenshi. I'm gonna finish editing this fucking. Each hue is a different wavelength. Things with a warmer wavelength is more long. The wavelengths are way longer, and as you slowly go up over the yellows, into the greens, and into the blues, those wavelengths start off from being long to shorter wavelength. But yes, what you're seeing here on the color wheel is hue, not color. The color is a combination of 3 different things. That is the hue, saturation, as well as value. These 3 things will combine and they will mix and they form color as we know it. Because even the brightest colors are still a combination of all 3. Whether they be high in saturation and high in brightness, or say lower in saturation and low in... It's a mix. And now that we know the fundamentals of color, I'm going to show you I'm going to show you the basics of how you can combine colors to give them, to amplify your artwork. The 3 main types of color schemes that you would normally see: complementary colors, triad colors, and analogous colors. There are obviously more that you can go with, but I'm going to go over these 3 for simplicity's sake. For simplicity's sake. For simplicity's sake. So complementary colors, what are they? Complementary colors is what happens when a color is usually on the opposite end of the color wheel spectrum thing. Bear this in mind, I did make this color wheel on my own, so things may not line up as good as they do, but promise me I'm telling the truth. You see how we have this nice delicious blue here, looking all nice and juicy and wet? Well, if you go beyond that, you get into a nice orange color, because blue and orange are complementary colors. Again, I represented this bad. Don't worry about this. Blue and orange are complementary colors. You see how we have a nice, juicy, delicious red here? The same is true there. Green. Would you look at that? Red and green are also complementary. You see how we have this purple here? Wow, looks very vibrant. Oh, if you look there, oh, look at that. It's yellow. Oh my god, I can't believe it. It looks, god, that looks so jank. But you get what I mean. They, on a normal color wheel that is more well done than mine, you have the opposites being complementary. These are usually used to create some decent contrast when you don't have a lot of value, even though you should have a nice amount of value, and you should have a lot of value in your art. But if you don't, this could be a nice way to separate the 2 elements. Say if you have like a nice blue sky, and you have a person who is cloaked by the sun and is like red, like you have their like orange skin, like that is nicely illuminated by the sun. That kind of thing. Like Sam does arts. Red and blue is his shtick. I know I mentioned him in the last video, but I love Sam. He has a nice way of portraying complementary colors. Now moving on from that stuff, we got Triad. This is a color scheme that is represented by having, instead of things that are on the opposite ends of the on the opposite ends of the color wheel, you have things that are on 3 different ends coming together and forming a color scheme. So this yellow, this sort of tealy green, and this purple. That's a nice tertiary color. You can rotate this around the color wheel and have this be for really anything. These go well nicely together. Obviously, when you are coloring a character like this, you're not going to use a full saturation on all of these. You would keep one dominant, really bright, vibrant color as your main one, and have the 2 be either higher or lower in saturation and value, just to make it so that you can amplify your main color. But you get where I'm getting at. These color schemes overall have a nice balance. And now for Analogues, which is probably the easiest and most simple one to figure out. They are going to be colors that are next to the main color on the color wheel. So say if I want a color scheme that is blue focused, I would choose my blue. Then I would go into colors that are around the blue. So I would go with a lighter, then the main, and then that one. Boom. You have a nice cool color scheme. Alright, so now that we have the basics of color theory in our minds, let's go ahead and start coloring him. color theory won't really matter here because I already picked out the colors in the character design video. So the way I usually go about it is I fill in the base colors, then I go into shading and highlights, which sometimes I may flip and I'll do highlights and shading afterwards. Then I finish it off with some materialistic things. Or maybe sometimes whenever I just feel like it, I just fly by the seat of my pants and I just fill it in. But I'm just going to show you a general way in how you can color your characters and yeah, how to shade them and make them look nice. So we're going to fill in the base colors. Okay, so we have the character filled in and now we can get on to the fun stuff. So what I like to do before I start doing anything, I'm going to cloak the entire character in shadow. And if I go over to my layers, I'm going to create a new one, create that as a clipping mask, and I'm going to go into like a mid-gray color, like around this value, not too bad. And then I'm going to set the clipped layer to multiply, and then boom, shadow. I learned that little trick from Sam. God damn it. Pretty much we're going to follow these forms as if we're lighting our primitives. So say for this rounder bit, I'm gonna, obviously because our light source is coming up from up here, like we established in the last video with the lines, we're gonna shadow this end. I'm not doing this with like a cell shaded style. I like to go for more of like a realistic sort of like blended style, so I'm gonna go with something that reflects that. But yeah, we're gonna light, and we're gonna light it as if we're lighting a sphere. Boom. Simple. We're gonna do that for all of these. It's simple, but it does not make it easy. The brush that I am using is, I don't know if you caught a glimpse when I was selecting it there, but it is, oopsie. It is Mark Brunet's little cube brush. It's a really nice painterly looking brush that you can use to mix and get pretty well blended looking things in. I can't really explain it, but you'll see as I'm getting this done. But yeah, Mark Brunet's cube brush is lit as fuck. I don't know what you want me to say, man. There with it. And I'm only doing rough. We're starting out rough. Like, just like with the sketching and with lines. You start out rough, then you clean up as you go along. I'm just getting the bare bones basics. And then we'll adjust shape. And we'll, as well as, like, other things that need to be adjusted later on. So now, you got this big shadow here because you got this big arm coming in, shining down, and causing a nice shadow shape. I'm just going to fill it in as like a little blob for now, and then we'll come back later. I'm also going to have, I'm going to show you a way how you can make 2 light sources in one. So this little tail, the tail that is supposed to be on top of this, the flame that's on the tip of this tail, it's going to be emitting a sort of orange light. So that way I can show you a nice way to give yourself 2 light sources without having them clash. When you're doing big cast shadows like these, you don't, you can if you want to. Obviously, it'll bring your drawings to the next level if you really put in the work to track these shadows the way that they're supposed to be. I don't have time for all that. That's not fun. I draw purely based on fun, and that is not fun. What I do is I draw just a sort of vague shape that I think that would follow the shadow and its shape. Obviously still keeping in mind the positioning and seeing which way it would go, but I don't go into the weeds of like tracking it with a line coming down or trying to figure out every single edge of form. No. It'll bring your art up, like I said, but no, I'm not gonna do all that. So as you can see, I came up with this sort of like little shape. It's vague enough for you to say, oh yeah, that's the arm being cast on the body armor. We're good, fam. And just like that, we have a nice, basic, general placement for all of our shadows. And now we can go into the weeds of them even more. Yeah, we have a basic looking shading layer. Looks good. We're going to go in and we're going to clean it up a bit to make it look nicer, and then we'll get into other shit. If you need to carve in a shape, then you can just place down a lot of the shadow color. Then you can just go in and carve what you need to carve. Actually, since my light is coming from over here, it would actually, none of this would be here. Hang on. None of it would be here. There we go, right there. About right there, because it's coming down. Like I said before, you don't have to have things super duper precise. Just precise enough to make it believable. Like now this would come out more because it's hitting. So, boom. Most of that would get covered. A lot of this here would be covered as well, just a little bit. This is more of like a sharp turn, so I will probably do some like this, and then that, and then this will also be the same way, where it'll be light leading into the harsh dark over here. But this being harsh, there we go. Probably do that same thing for most of it here. Already you can see that I'm creating depth with this. This is looking like this peak is coming up instead of doing that. I'm just laying in these basic parts because I'm going to lean more heavy into this in the next part coming up. So, alright, so after merging the layers, I'm going to add a new layer, flip it to the layer below, and set it to hard light. I'm going to set the saturation up a little bit so that way I can get into these yellower spots. Maybe go into the orange a bit. There we go. And we can start painting in some highlights. Not everywhere, obviously. You want to be sparing. You want to be spare with it. But overall, yeah. One other thing I forgot to do was I forgot to fill that in with shadow. Alright, we got a, okay, as you can see, looking a little messy, but if you zoom out, looking pretty good. nice, finished character painting just for you. With this, that is the end of our series. I'm going to take about a week-long, well-deserved break, and without posting anything, not even a speed paint, I'm just going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to prepare for the next series, which I'll announce next week. I'm sorry, I have to let you wait. But if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. I would greatly appreciate it, just for giving you some entertainment / knowledge for you. A link to the rest of the playlist is going to be in the description as well. So, feel free to take a look at that if you haven't seen them yet. But, I'm going to leave it here. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Goodbye! Yay, we finished a goddamn series! Oh my god. I need a nap.